Welcome to Data Pioneers, where today we're joined by Brian Robertson, the founder and CEO of VisiQuate. We're here in the new VisiQuate Innovation Lab, where we have a really awesome conversation about the latest, greatest around revenue cycle management, AI, and the major trends. I'm really excited to bring this episode. I think it's going to be awesome, and we have a lot of fun, as always. Brian, welcome to Data Pioneers.
Thanks for having me.
It's so awesome to be here in this new innovation lab. It's the Machina. Tell me a little bit about the new space. It's looking amazing.
So it finally came to life. How many times have you heard me talk about like the Bloomberg terminal and a command center where clients come in and they see high fidelity insights in their enterprise, not just on their screen, but like you fight a modern war. It's a digital war room. Business is war. Those are the conversations we used to have. And when we had the option to expand the space and there was this wall, and it's like, let's stop talking about this. And I issued the challenge to the team. They started scoping and sizing the TVs and how much electricity we had to put in here. But yeah, we took it live literally a month before our client summit. And in the lab, it's, obviously this room is kind of set up for a multi-purpose. We've got the crash carts to do innovation, paper prototyping, invite clients out to brainstorm, white-board, like we used to do.
It's amazing.
Right? Just taking it to the next level.
And for the listeners that don't know, Brian is the founder and CEO of VisiQuate, and my probably number one mentor in the entire industry, my whole career. Had the pleasure of spending the last 14 years with VisiQuate as one of the founding team members, and we had just a ton of fun throughout the years building an amazing company. But Brian, tell us a little bit about you, your background, and then a little bit about VisiQuate, so we can start there.
Yeah. No, well, thanks for that. And everybody still misses you and very fond memories of the last 15, 16 years. So I guess I'm, 30 plus years in healthcare, always in the revenue cycle, medical group, hospital, always kind of, I say, slinging data for the CFO and the revenue cycle and the team. So it started out as data consulting. That merged into meta analytics, and internet days, deploying powerful analytics over the internet in the 2000s. And then when we met, because you were literally a co-founder and had your own tech experience, and part of it was like, I remember fondly us talking about, you're not going to be too close to healthcare and the revenue cycle, and we need like a tech warrior, a big data warrior, somebody to help push us think outside the box. And we wanted to think more in big data and have a platform. And at that time, other folks were doing the point solution thing. And so here we are 16 years into it, and it's still, the problems, the problems are frankly the same. I think back 30 years, why are we still talking about denials the way we're talking about it? But we are, and it's just the reality. And then one could argue it's even worse, because I think, in healthcare and providers, the complexity coefficient's gone up because of merger and acquisition. And so our clients, north of $1 billion in net patient revenue, they have multiple systems of record, as you know. We're still dealing with the ANZ X12 data, 837, 835, third-party data, credit agency data, just every single day. The 4 V's of big data are still, it's all there. It's even more intense. It's more complex. The problems have gotten more complex. And thankfully, AI, machine learning, without some of the new tech, I think it'd be a real struggle. But now if you look at anything from generative AI, machine learning, recommendation engines, all of those things are helping so that all of us can do more with less. But there's still a lot of work to be done, because I would say that the whole industry is at like stage 2 still of a stage 5 analytics maturity curve.
Yeah, and I mean, you're probably the undisputed OG in the like true rev cycle data and analytics space. And the one of the reasons I thought part of our this series is all about how can the United States truly accelerate transitioning to more of an aligned incentive model. So value-based care. There's a lot of different ways to go about that. And but as we're out in the market talking to leaders, talking to health systems, it's still, I mean, if we really break it down, despite a lot of progress, we're, I think, still less than 10% of health system revenue is truly value-based or at risk outside of the fee-for-service model. And so having you on the series is really just kind of like, let's talk about what's happening at RCM. It's still like such a huge part of what health systems are dealing with every day and where we need to innovate. And so, what are you seeing right now in terms of just, in the market, there's a washing machine of ideas and things going on. Like, what's interesting to you, right now in the RCM space, and then where you see kind of transitions or crossovers into value-based care.
Yeah.
And by the way, since it's a Friday, I think.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I brought this. We were reminiscing over Oben 14.
The day before.
It's a Friday night, everybody.
Day before Christmas. I think we should have a.
And this is what they do on podcasts now, right? It's not
I think so.
Too sterile and clinical, and we got some water though. All right. And you're right, it's the holidays. So
perfect.
Here we go.
Cheers,
good to see you, my friend. Cheers.
Likewise, as always.
What was the question again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so where to start? I mean, can I be provocative?
Please.
Can I be? So I think you and I have talked about this a lot, even in the last couple of years, as you're tackling more pop health. I don't know. I struggle with. I've been on the sidelines of when is pop health going to happen? Whether it's full risk capitation, shared risk, accountable care, all forms of value-based care. I, like you, love the idea. I think it is the right idea and the incentives. I can see in my head a vision where we have, cost and quality. The total cost and quality, because optimized cost is actually better quality. If you look at the data, the right orthotic, the right prosthetic that costs less and has a lower length of stay, that's doable. But there's so many factors, there's so many complexities, the power structure, starting from Capitol Hill and all of the associations. I mean, healthcare is a $4 trillion industry. Actually, like 4.7 trillion and maybe even 5. So 20% of the economy. With that many players and that much raw power and corporate inertia and entropy and human beings getting in the way of the technical progress that could be achieved. And I say that with affection because I love all the human out of the loop things, but in healthcare, the human's going to be in the loop for a while. But back to the, as we talked about this even in your time with us, our approach was always with value-based care to just, we're here to deliver what you need. The reality is most of our clients and most of the data, it's 75, 80, 90%, depending on the market, the zip code. It's fee-for-service healthcare. Mm-hmm. And still death by 1,000 cuts, and it's a war between the provider and the payer. And every day is a new day, and everybody's changing the rules. And, hospitals have got to do things to continue to get more efficient, do more with less. Payers got to chill out a little bit on certain things. And the fact is that, there are opportunities for them to get along more through the power of data.
Yeah.
But I don't think that pop health at scale is going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah. And you've talked about for years sort of the concept for healthcare leaders of the Bloomberg terminal, right? I want you to talk about that in a second, right? There's a lot of what you see from VisiQuate that's very inspired by that concept. For the modern CFO, like the dynamic we were just talking about, where you have such a layered reimbursement and keeping track of like your core fee for service, but then how do other indicators layer up to additional opportunities to increase margin and things like that. I think the Bloomberg terminal now more than ever
Yeah.
is, an amazing thing. So break that down for how you think about what's that kind of modern Bloomberg terminal for the healthcare leader.
So I sometimes get accused, and even on a call today, that I'm just the visual guy, and I love the high fidelity insights and the idea that risk, everybody's visual to a certain extent. So if you have an aging curve and it's an aging curve without heat, it's not as informed as an aging curve with heat. And if you can rapidly zoom into the heat and find the risk visually, zoom in, zoom out. I still think that all humans are visual to a large extent. And this lets you see the breadth and depth of information. So sometimes people are like, well, it's just too busy, it's too much. And it's like, no, because each widget is connected to a different problem. Mm-hmm. So the breadth and depth of something like this is there, but it's still when you look at, it's like, here's aging, here's cash, here's bad debt, here's charity, here's whatever, right? You got to engage with that. What got us here? Rapidly click what was the regression line? Where are we headed? Can I dynamically do sensitivity analysis? I still believe in advanced analytics starting with visual mining, because it's hard to get data. You got to cleanse it, normalize it. You got to curate it. You got to have rules that make it more actionable, and then it's got to be actionable. And I think it's more actionable when the fidelity is as high as it can be. Mm-hmm. But then there are different types of users. So you do have to do advanced user profiling, and you got to have, this is a more quantitative play for the CFO and the VP of revenue cycle and their staff that are number crunchers. But as we go back in time, and use cases that we did even in the Medi days, where a physician or a nurse engaging with analytics, they don't have time. They're seeing patients. Their analytics has got to be, and you and I both worked on Health Mobility, where it's like, do this, do this, do this, go see a patient, do this, do this. So analytics has to meet the needs of the user where they are in their job function, right? And then, again, in a discussion this morning was the concept of narrative analytics. Mm-hmm. And the idea of, we're all, generative AI's got a lot of potential but you can do both. So if you're a CFO and you have a Bloomberg terminal experience where you're like, where's my problem? It's managed care. Where specifically? It's Blue Cross. Where specifically? It's Hospital 14 or Clinic 22. Visually unpacking that is powerful, but let's say that you find a bolus of AR and then you want to watch it. Right. And now you've got a little Merlin or a narrative agent, Anna. Now Anna's going to help you. Hey, you were interested in that last Tuesday. Do you want me to be in your ear for the next 2 weeks on that problem that you're having with HealthNet or Aetna or Cigna? And so think about, you were a big part of launching Anna. And Anna started off as conversation in UI, but now you're having a conversation with Anna in a more natural way. And Anna's going like, you want me to hang out on your shoulder with this problem? So it's really kind of both, right? Yeah. It's like meet the user where they are with the right information at the right time. It goes back to our founding years where we said, on a silver platter, give people the accounts, the anomalies, the defects, right, that they can impact, and then try to do it in a delightful experience so that it feels like a retail experience. And it's, I still think corporate, software sucks inside the corporate. It still sucks, and it doesn't have to. So
I talk to a lot of healthcare innovators sort of within the health system. So CIOs, chief digital officers, service lines. And AI is obviously the main topic in the industry. Everybody's talking about it. And what's interesting is when asked, what are the main areas you're looking at applying AI first, 100% of the people that I've interviewed have said RCM as like the number one place, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I think that coming out of COVID, coming out of a lot of the things where the industry's had, rightfully so in many respects, been kind of hunkered down solving some of these problems. they're needing to place bets in technology. RCM is, very value rich out of the gate.
Yep.
But often, what I'm seeing is, candidly, when I dig a layer deeper, well, what are you doing, right? And it's kind of the same
Yeah.
three prior auth, like couple
Yeah.
things, right, that we've been doing candidly for a
Yep.
long time, even with
Yep.
with some AI. What are you seeing? I mean, you mentioned some of those use cases with Anna being that kind of companion co-pilot. Are there specific areas you're excited, use case wise, or just in general, where some of the next generation of agentic AI and things could
Yep.
really move the needle?
Yep. You remember how I used to say that the revenue cycle is the poster child for big data?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the same. I want to reuse that construct. So, back then it's like, well, take a client, a $3 billion net patient revenue client, again with, the average community hospital has 18 systems. You take an IDN type thing and they've got, they're not on Epic or Cerner. Many people are on Epic, Cerner, Meditech, and Athena, and this and that. Now, they may have chosen a main system record, but most people are dealing with a lot of systems, right? So that, the big data approach was to, hey, we need all of it. And then we've got to normalize and cleanse all of it. We've got to make all of it actionable and give it high fidelity insights. So now if you take AI as an umbrella and you say like, there's 1,000 buzzwords, but who cares? They're all relevant if it's on the right business problem, or it's on the right business problem with the right user, right? So you're going to run machine learning on, deep denial. If you have 2 years of denial insights and you want to learn from that, and then you want to make some assumptions of where you're going to head in the future, you're going to use something like that. A recommendation engine that tells you what accounts to work has relevance. Generative AI in that use case we just described, like conversational UI, come in the morning and ask Anna, why do I have a cash? Well, it looks like I'm going to have a cash shortfall in the remaining, 48 days of the fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anna says, you are.
Yeah.
Well, where? Right? So, but again, it has to be every business problem has to be thoughtfully thought through in a flow chart. I'm still going to bring some old school, like you better have a fishbone diagram or a flow chart of your business problem. And then you understand how you would solve it manually.
Right.
And then what's the right technology to catalyze it, reduce cycle time, give a better metric, give a better score.
And a lot of that AI applied on the provider side is sort of handling those process things that are basically kind of working and interacting with the payer. I mean, what happens, is it the case sooner than later where you're going to have AI on the provider side, in essence, either, and I don't want to use the word battling, but kind of, battling with the AI on the payer side? How does that look? I mean, is there just going to be is that going to be like an AI interaction between payer and provider anytime soon?
Man,
maybe it's already happening.
I hope so. I don't know. I don't want to be cynical. But if I use the word pragmatic, maybe, that payers have, if you look at the data, and you were a part of pitches we did together where payers have providers outmanned and outgunned. If you use the word analytics, and all things advanced analytics and certainly things in AI, they have the budgets, they have the tools, and frankly, their business model is mostly data and how to adjudicate data. Whereas a hospital has to see the patient, treat the patient, their side hustle is data. And then when there's a tussle between the payer and the provider, it's an unfair fight, and we're trying to make a difference for the provider. But I do think that there's opportunities for, and they spend time together, and there are opportunities for them to collaborate where AI and various forms of analytics or AI could help facilitate like I use the term, détente discussion. Mm-hmm. So, because they're both, it can't be a zero-sum game. And there are times where they're gamifying each other, and it is zero-sum, and that's just business reality. But there are times where it's like, hey, my cost to collect is as high as your cost to adjudicate on all claims below $1,000. I mean, just start there. All claims below $1,000, they have so much labor fighting, playing ping pong and fighting each other. You just package all that up and call it, make an elegant settlement engine and use the power of AI to say, like, you guys are going to settle all these claims out in the future at X cents on the dollar. Why don't you just package them up and settle them right now?
Yeah.
So, some of our ideas that we've whiteboarded over the years, I think are now just infinitely more doable.
Very doable.
Very doable.
And we're gonna have actually a health plan or two on this series in the next year, in the new year, which can be fun to kind of throw some of these ideas out there and kind of get their take. One of the things that we both, I think, as organizations at WellStack and VisiQuate, and certainly what I've been a part of with the team at VisiQuate over a long period of time now in RevCycle, is sort of the continued problem with getting, for providers specifically, to set their trusted data foundation, right? I mean, there's so much now, and now more than ever, I think leaders in health systems are being asked to accelerate that path, right? And so what was, we use we do a survey, right, where you ask organizations, how many of you consider data analytics mission critical to your strategic objectives, right? And we just did this survey live in a room with like 20 CIOs. 100% of the hands went up in the room, right? So in the same survey, how many of you trust your current data foundation? There were literally all hands went down. Yep. Zero takers to
Yep.
Do you really trust your foundation?
Yep.
And so I think at VisiQuate, you guys are pretty industry standard on that for RevCycle and that whole kind of patient financial experience. And I think it's just more relevant than ever in terms of being able to help organizations set that foundation to drive AI, because AI is going to put even a deeper lens on that problem. And any thoughts on that, or do you think that there's new ways that AI can better leverage source systems?
Yeah, you know what I just thought of, just hearing you talk about it, and my brain wanted to immediately go to, how do I answer this in the tools and technologies? But lately what I've been chatting about a lot, and like, do you look for the latest tools and technologies, or are we really talking about change management? So if I think about how are we going to make progress in the revenue cycle with today's people process technology, and we have all the tools and technology. We can do a lot to help clients, but adoption and stickiness is not where it needs to be, and frankly, ROI is not. Now, there's lots of great case studies to share, and it's easy to get content. We have situations where clients have a great success story, and we pay for ourselves for a couple of years. Great, but it could be much more than that. And so, what's stopping it to me is not. It's how do I say this? The lack of progress is still that the C-suite is not engaged enough. So if you think about data-driven excellence, and I thought of it because of your survey, because we did a recent survey as well in our client summit. So everybody wants to be stage 5 analytics, and everybody wants to be data-driven, and everybody wants to leverage AI. But the truth is, and I think you know this too, how often does the C-suite all agree to that and answer that survey, and then look at the CIO?
Yeah.
Or the CTO. So this is not a technologies tools problem. It is a business transformation problem, because I know we agree on the sentiment that we live in a data economy, and data is the new oil. It's not a slogan, it's reality. But there's this disconnect from my perspective, and C-suites are busy and they got to solve 100 problems a day, and a lot of, if you look at the model of quantitative versus qualitative, depending on what C-suite person you are. So if you're a CEO, your day is qualitative and better have EQ skills. And if you're the CIO and the CFO, Well, it's in his title, CIO, and that's going to be more quantitative. It's going to be more like that, right? But I'm sorry, the whole thing is an enterprise-wide endeavor. And if you're going to answer the survey data, then why are you kicking the can down the road? Because many of them are.
Yeah.
And I hope I get in a little bit of trouble. Call me. Because they are. They're kicking the can down the road, and they're still guilty of looking at the, not everybody, but they still think it's a CIO. Or the CIO or CTO, they have their staff, and there's always that guy. Some of our people call it Game Boy, or there's always the guy that thinks he can build that in a weekend, right? But that's because the whole group thinks it's tools and technology. Oh, just stand up a data warehouse. We already have license to this, and we bought Teradata, or we bought this or that. It's not about that. It starts at the C-suite. You want to be data-driven in a data economy? Then get serious about it. Lean into it. And that's hard. So I think change management, and it's almost like I jokingly said, you know, the show Billions with Wendy. I think every company needs a Wendy. They need a psychologist where the change management department reports to them, because it's that's what, to me, it's going to take, is people getting people in a headlock, and then the tools and the technology and the use cases, right? I think we're going to make more progress if the world's got to get fired up that data's the new oil, not just talk about it. There's too much rhetoric.
Well, and we've talked for years about, you know, just the true value in a lot of what we do, candidly, is the data warriors, right, that are on our team every day.
Yep.
You know, like grinding through the mess and the nuances and all that stuff in healthcare data. And, you know, VisiQuate has probably one of the premier teams on the planet in doing this. And, you know, I think it's important to just always acknowledge and call out those folks that are doing this, and also at our clients, right? I mean, our clients have a lot of data warriors that are, you know, really doing their best, like pulling all this data together, and it requires so much in terms of, you know, joining and cleansing and normalizing, and, you know, kind of doing that to get together every day on the muddy football field is something that's, you know, I think always has to be acknowledged in these conversations.
Yeah, totally. Well, it reminds me of like billers and collectors in the basement. You know, there are a lot of people that don't get the recognition they deserve, to your point, but they also tend to be introverted, and they like their cubicle. If they're still in the office and not at home, they like their cubicle where they get a lot of things done and push out a lot of intelligence. But that alone, that sort of makes the cycle continue, because it feels like there's too much dependency on people, IT and data warriors.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to, if we don't recognize that business transformation has to happen in a much bigger way to be data driven, like 2025, we're almost at 2020, 2025 data driven, not BI, not reports, not decision support. It's like, this is an enterprise. Everybody's got to be good at data. Even if your job is largely qualitative and you use soft skills and EQ to manage your data, there's still insights that you want the quant informing the qual and moving the chains, right? So I'm just going to be on a mission and a quest to challenge the C-suite.
Yeah,
that they're part of the problem, because they give it lip service and they fill out the survey data, but again, most of them are. If you've got to fill out the survey about where you are, most of them end up at stage 2.
Yeah,
like we've talked about over the years. Well, who's at stage 5? It's still Harrah's Casino, McDonald's, Walmart, the businesses that monetize. I mean, think of Zara, right? Is it Zara or Zara?
Zara, yeah.
Zara's use of AI on demand. So you take a sweater off the shelf and you order it, and it's real-time demand management, and the next one shows up 48 hours later. That's monetizing data.
Have you seen where you go into the stores at Zara and you literally just throw all your stuff into just almost like a box, and it just fills out the register? Like,
Yeah, see what I mean?
It's just, it's dialed, right? You can do your whole
These industries,
wardrobe shopping, and
and it's so. Let me get this straight. We can do that with clothes,
right.
but in an industry where we're trying to take care of patients that are beaten up and broken and need a lot of care and attention, and then we've got to deal with the economics of that. That should be one of the most highbrow things we do.
Absolutely.
But we just kind of clunk our way through and look at the CIO, right? So it's I'm in a provocative mood these days to like poke people because that's not the only one. The list goes on. All these industries that use any form of tools or technology, AI, machine learning, if it's the holiday season and Amazon knows last year what I did with stocking stuffers and already has it served up on a silver platter.
Yeah.
There are certain things that are theme based, but it's like, are you going to fill a stocking with like lotions and makeup remover? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the list goes on and on. Look at Formula One racing.
Yeah.
Now the pit crew can affect 23 things in a real-time race. So again, there's all these things. It's sad for me that one of the studies is that the best people that monetize data as a strategic asset are all of those that sell addiction. So you think about all forms of addiction, look at what's behind the scenes. If you sell addiction, smokes, booze, porn, whatever.
Well, and think how that flows into the industry we're talking about now, right? So it's
exactly.
It's pretty direct.
Yes.
Pretty direct impact.
Yes. They correlate.
Direct correlation.
As we sit there here, cheers.
Yeah, cheers. There we go. Well done. Well done.
Let's add to the studies.
So, what have I not asked you that you think I should, in terms of what's going on?
Man, we just hit some really good stuff. Well, I'm going to turn it around on you a little bit because I was very enchanted by things like data fabric, and to the point where we did some pilots together, and I. Although, if I'm being honest, right, if you think about what we just talked about, while the idea of solutions like that, or if you think about our friend Leo, what Leo's tackling with Datum, I get as excited as the next person at looking at that and saying, oh my gosh. But if I'm being honest, right, it goes back to that problem of why are these things not getting more traction when they should?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm trying to these days unpack the why more on the people dynamics and change management and stuff.
Yeah, and my take on that is I think like all things, right? None of those technologies applied horizontally can just snap into healthcare. I think that's always everybody's assumption or hope, probably more of a hope than an assumption, is that we can take great AI, and it's going to be the same thing with Gen AI, right? So you take those, like AI-assisted mapping or data fabric that can sit across and stitch together, disparate healthcare systems. The problem is there's still the metadata layer, right? There's still the layer that has to be effectively governed, and then also matched to healthcare, the nuances of healthcare and how it rolls up to insights. And so, I still think that those technologies will have a place and emerge in the next ecosystem, especially as AI maybe gets better at sort of connecting the dots of key elements. Because the problem with some of the data fabric technology is it's great at sort of, overlaying and querying on demand, but still the translation from the ask to whether it's querying via SQL or whether it's, joining some other way, there's still a healthcare domain layer in there that rolls up to trust that you have to have. And as we know, Gen AI is not great at things that have to be the same every time, right? And so, and a healthcare leader that's asking a question, they want that question to be answered consistently. And so I think what as solutionists take some of that technology, and again, like all things, right? It's like does Tableau or MicroStrategy or Power BI, do you just snap it on healthcare data and magic happens? No, like we all know that it takes sort of that that healthcare building layer that has to come into the mix. And so I think that that's what's just taking some time to evolve. And even in the next year, I think that even what I've seen out of Microsoft's Fabric, the latest Fabric, there's some good stuff in there. And I think with the right solutioning around it,
Yeah.
there's going to be some wins coming. And the same thing on the AI assisted mapping layer. I think it's just getting more, iterations with some of the key data sources is going to
Yeah.
really start to emerge. So I'm still pretty hopeful about some of
Yeah.
that stuff. I just think it's, like all things, there's no silver bullet that's going to
Yeah.
come through overnight.
Well, and I just, it goes back to what we were talking about. Like, how do we get everybody engaged on this overall data-driven excellence, right? And even in the word we've talked about, right? The word data fabric, it feels kind of techie, dorky, ITE, and it facilitates that swivel over to the CIO. Like,
Yeah.
do we have a data fabric solution? Like, I don't even know what that is, but do we have it?
No.
And will it make all my problems go
And
away?
most people disagree with what is a data fabric or a data mesh or a who knows what.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that again, back
Data
to the
provenance, data lineage, data,
back to the point, it's
Yeah.
technology is a big enabler, but in our world, a big part of it is how do you truly translate that into solving business problems, and that's what I think is hopefully coming here in the next year with a lot of the progress that has been made.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's next. 2025 for
Yeah.
VisiQuate. You just did announce a partnership with AKKR.
Yeah.
So exciting times for the company.
Amazing.
What's next? What's exciting? How is that? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm probably knowing you've had the next 5 years planned out for a long time. So probably not a lot of change.
Well, they've made me.
Yeah, but tell us about what's coming, what's exciting for you this year.
Yeah. So, our 5-year plan is pretty simple. And in terms of a headline statement, it's like automate the revenue cycle as much as you can, right? And I think for years, these kinds of analytics and data signals and anomaly detection have been mostly, at least in our sense, have been mostly centric on yield, improving cash, reducing bad debt through insights and put the right insight to the right user. And obviously that doesn't go anywhere. That's still in spades. But now it becomes, much more how do we tackle administrative waste?
Yeah.
And there's a labor shortage. If you look across our spectrum of clients, and we just had a client summit in the survey data there and in our own talking to clients constantly. The median average is 15%, right? So you just think about that, 15% revenue cycle workers. And our clients say statements like, look, when folks that work in the revenue cycle can make more working for Uber or being a district manager at Target or something like that, that's where they're going. So it is enabling us to have more meaningful discussions about how to help them automate the labor, and not just automate the labor, but just get smarter, right? How do we get smarter later? And we're still passionate about creating knowledge workers. We want VisiQuate users to work to the top of their, with doctors they say the top of your license, and it's like the top of your cognitive ability,
Sure.
and the top of your potential, because you might be here, but with a little bit of training, you're here, and then you're here, and then you're here. So upskilling the worker, if I think about our roadmap, we're going to be in an M&A mode. We're going to acquire things that are smart because they help fill the product roadmap. So, things like contract management and repricing, clients want us to do that. There's lots to do in charge audit, charge capture. There's lots to do in coding. So we're going to buy the tools and the technologies that create those kind of leapfrog moments. We might even buy change management. If you have a boutique of 15 great change managers and they have revenue cycle knowledge, that can unlock value faster than other things. So it's going to be pushing up the maturity curve and measuring success by yield and administrative waste.
Yeah.
And intelligent process automation now is that parallel. So it's for years, and still on our website, the business analytics maturity curve, but now intelligent process automation. So all things core workflow, but smart workflow and better workflow, and workflow that learns over time and just does more, and hopefully insights that get upstream. We got to solve the systemic problems and not just squeeze the cash out and then wait for it to fill up again and squeeze it out. It's like go fix the hole in the bucket.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, nothing would be more awesome for Anna to be sort of the go-to RCM co-pilot, right?
Yeah.
Of the future, right? That would be such a cool, just like continued trend that I think is aligned not only with kind of tech speak and where people see it going, but actually what the industry needs, right? To kind of provide the superpowers to the RCM worker, or having that co-pilot that's there with, all the, how many years now, 15 plus years across tens of millions or hundreds of millions of patient encounters.
Yep.
Having that body of knowledge available in a co-pilot to be able to help you guide through all that complexity, I think is exactly what the industry needs, and you're probably the best position to do it.
Yeah, it's well said, and you reminded me of community wisdom. So for years we've talked about crowdsourced wisdom, so we can study the data and who pays and doesn't pay and why don't they pay, or we can study the data and say where are there operational inefficiency or bottlenecks in somebody's revenue cycle operation, or but the community wisdom. So it's really our clients with the data, with us, with companies like you, working together to just make that incremental improvement, right?
Yeah.
So it's I think like economies of intellect, right? The community wisdom with data wisdom, and it's still got to be like smart iterations. The one thing that we got to get away from, there's still a mentality that like software is this, when do you go live? And it's like, well, we stood up servers and we stood up the first data set. We're already going. So like, go attack the problem. People always want to wait until the AR is balanced to the penny. And I'm like, why? If 5 of the payers are balanced to the penny and we're still trying to figure out work comp because there's always some, go after this, solve problems today, work together as teams. It's still going to be people, process, technology as a converging thing.
Yeah.
And the winners are the ones that still fail fast, iterate, do small things.
Agile processes.
Agile, be narrow, solve, learn, right?
Awesome. Well, as always, always great to hang out.
Great to hang.
Great to spend some
time. And we only had one whiskey,
I know.
We were good.
Cheers, man.
Cheers,
Happy
brother.
holidays, and thanks again for doing this.
Hey,
really fun.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Cheers.